All right, we now welcome on Jack Byers of BulldogBlitz.com. He's covering Mississippi State for them. That's the Rivals website. He's at Jack Byers Rivals on Twitter. Jack, thank you for joining us. And let's start with this. And this has nothing to do with the product on the field. Is Mississippi State is Starkville a good college town?
I think it's good for what it is. It's pretty small, but I think it's different than some of your other SEC college towns. It's a little smaller, but I think if you do like that smaller town kind of feel, I think it is pretty good. Sometimes, when I drive over to Tuscaloosa can get a little too hectic for me. So I enjoy Starkville.
Well, that's good. That's good. Fayetteville, I think Fayetteville's a little overpopulated, especially during the school year. So I'm excited to check out Starkville this weekend. So that's where Arkansas and Mississippi State are going to be playing. The Bulldogs are 4-1. Talk about that and maybe kind of hit on the loss to LSU. I know we did a behind enemy line story. You can check that out on HawgBeat.com. It seems like that loss to LSU is a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean they went into that game and they were favored, on the point spread in that game, and I thought it was a little surprising to me going on the road. And LSU gave them a lot of different looks defensively than what some of the other teams have. Texas A&M last week they rushed three and dropped eight pretty much the whole game, and LSU gave Mississippi State a lot of different looks. Disguised a bunch of different coverages, brought up a lot of pressure, and something that Mississippi State struggled with. Mississippi State's offensive line, they have a lot of different pieces than they had last year. They're moving guys who played guard last year to tackle, and they're still trying to figure a lot of things out there. So I think that mixes of, what LSU did on their defensive front kind of gave Mississippi State some problems. Defensively, Mississippi State played really well in that game, and they just kind of let the game get away from them in the fourth quarter. Their offense couldn't stay on the field, and the defense just got kind of gassed at the end.
So do you think so as far as Arkansas's defense goes, the secondary is atrocious, and that's not good, especially when you're going up against an air raid offense. But the pass rush has been very successful. Do you think that Arkansas maybe in this it hasn't worked for them this season where the pass rush can cancel out the secondary, but do you think that maybe that could help a little bit against Mississippi State?
I think it definitely can. I mean, just going back to what we saw against LSU, I don't think. I mean, LSU secondary is not bad, but I don't think it's great either. And Will Rogers had, I would say a career worst day aside from the games against Alabama. So if Arkansas is able to bring pressure, they will be able to give them problems just based on the off of the inexperience Mississippi State has on the offensive line.
So Arkansas, everybody knows about the situation with KJ Jefferson. It's still wait and see. We don't know if he's going to play on Saturday, but what we do know is that Arkansas is a good running team. They've got a good running back in Rocket Sanders, and then behind him you got three other guys who are very serviceable. Talk about Mississippi State's run defense and if they'll be able to slow down the Arkansas rushing offense.
Mississippi State's run defense has been pretty good. I mean, Devon Achane last week did break off some decent plays, but for the most part, they were able to meet him in the backfield a good amount of time. The interesting thing is that Mississippi State's Mike linebacker, Nathaniel Watson, was ejected for targeting in the second half of that game. So he's going to be missing the first half this week. And he's been a guy who's been getting in the backfield a lot. So, Mississippi State last few years, the run defense has been really good. But, if you're missing one of your stud linebackers, that can maybe create some problems that maybe Arkansas can take advantage of.
It seems like Mississippi State brought in a couple good transfers in the offseason, especially defensively. That talk about that and how that's helped them because it's definitely helped Arkansas defensive transfers.
Uh, you know, the biggest transfer they brought in, Jackie Matthews. He's a safety over from West Virginia, and he's playing more of like a nickel cornerback kind of role, and he's been pretty solid. He's a really strong tackler. Coverage, he's pretty solid, but where he's best at is the run game. And the most important transfer they probably brought in is the kicker. The kicking's been a little inconsistent this year, but it's still been pretty good. Ben Raybon comes over from Northern Colorado, and a couple weeks ago they drains a 53-yard field goal. They didn't have anybody that could do that last season, so that's been really big for them.
Yeah, so it was funny last year with the kicker situation. Of course, after the Arkansas game, Leach opened it up for open tryouts, but it seems like special teams has been something of note this week, especially in press conferences. Is Mississippi State? Do they have a pretty successful special teams? It seems like they might have a good returner.
They have some pretty dynamic returners. Kick return, Tulu Griffin. He's somebody who's ran back a couple kicks during his career. He's someone who usually once a game is getting to the 40-yard line on a return. And your punt returner, Xavier Thomas, he's a true freshman. He's someone that's busted off some 20+ yard returns this season. So they've been pretty good in the return game. They did muff a punt against LSU, but that was not Xavier Thomas. That was Austin Williams. Ever since that happened, they've mostly had Xavier Thomas back there. So I think so far their special teams has been pretty solid this year. And they did last week. They did block a kick on Texas A&M and then return it back for a touchdown.
All right. So let's switch gears to the Mississippi State offense. Everybody knows the air raid, but talk about the guys that make that successful. We know that Will Rogers, he's in year 3 with Mike Leach there, but some of the receivers, the guys who have made big plays, I think Ra Thomas is supposed to be a big playmaker. Kind of talk about those pass catchers.
Yeah, Ra Thomas has had a really big year. He kind of came on at the end of last season as a true freshman. He's just kind of carrying that into this season. He's got a good mix of size. He's around 6'2", but he's got some good speed as well. He can go deep. He's really good at high pointing the football. He's had some pretty good jump catches this year, and he's always good at finding some open space. And then on the opposite side of him, you have Caleb Ducking, who's kind of just a breakout player. He only had 8 receptions last year, when he was behind Makai Polk. But this year, he's second in the SEC in receiving touchdowns. He's another guy, big frame, 6'5", just uses that size to his advantage on the outside, and he's been really good.
And then the Mississippi State offensive line, it looks like it's a very veteran offensive line, but has that been a strong group for the Bulldogs, or is that somewhere where they've kind of struggled?
It's kind of hard to tell just because of what the different looks teams have given. When teams are usually rushing 3 against them, it's hard to get a good glimpse of what they're doing, and how they're doing. The offensive line is interesting because, you're right. Both of your tackles are guys who have mostly been guards during their career, and last week against Texas A&M, their starting left tackle, Bill Johnson, he did not play after getting hurt against Bowling Green. And they moved a guy who was the starting left guard over to left tackle, and he did pretty well. That was Nick Jones. So the offensive line's been solid. I think it's been really good in the run game. They've got 2 running backs averaging over 5 yards a carry, which is not something you would expect from a Mike Leach offense, but they've been really good in the run game too. So something that you may see, because they ran for 144 yards against Texas A&M last week. I'm not sure if that's the highest during the Leach tenure, but it's something this year that we've really seen more of compared to the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that A&M game. A&M got the best of Arkansas there in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. There's a lot of factors in that game. Arkansas probably should have won it, but they didn't. What did Mississippi State do so successfully to just kind of dominate the Aggies?
They brought a lot of pressure on Max Johnson, and the A&M was really able to move the football. They got into the red zone a few times, and then when that happened, Mississippi State just started bringing a lot of pressure. They got some sacks, they forced some turnovers. Colin Duncan, one of their Mississippi State safeties, punched a fumble out of Devon Achane's hands, and Nathaniel Wilson gets a strip sack on Max Johnson, a couple more sacks to kind of push him out of that red zone territory. So it was really just being really aggressive defensively when A&M kind of got into Mississippi State territory.
So when you look at this game, I'm sure you've done you're looking into Arkansas. I've done my looking into Mississippi State. Who do you think has the upper hand?
I would say Mississippi State right now, just based on what Arkansas has done defensively this season. Obviously, I mean, Arkansas's pass defense is ranked pretty low. And we can talk about the pressure that Arkansas is able to bring, but it's kind of, you need to see it to believe it. So I think Mississippi State's offense, they're going to be able to pass the ball. They're going to be able to move the ball up the field, and they should be able to score some points. And defensively, Mississippi State, maybe Arkansas can put up some points, maybe they don't. It kind of depends on ultimately what KJ Jefferson's status is. But I think Mississippi State's defense should, be able to hold Arkansas to, enough points where Mississippi State should have a decent advantage.
And then talk about the home field advantage there at Davis Wade Stadium, because going into last week against Alabama, I felt like the atmosphere at Razorback Stadium was going to give the Hogs anywhere from 7 to 10 points. I don't really know if it did. Maybe in the third quarter it did. But, everybody knows about the Cowbells. But has the home field advantage really been there this year?
I think it definitely showed up against Texas A&M. It was getting really loud there last week, especially on some of those big plays, and that really gives them a big advantage. I'm sure the Arkansas fans don't want to hear this, but those Cowbells, they can really get into the other team's head. And if you're an Arkansas fan traveling to Starkville, I'll probably bring an ibuprofen with you because I even get headaches, just sitting up in the press box too after the game. So it's definitely unique. I think it does present them an advantage, and we can see how it plays out in the field.
So some people in the Arkansas media have talked about how the Mississippi State fans don't really follow the rules with ringing the cowbells. Is that kind of true?
Um, I I think that's true when they play Ole Miss. I don't know if that's true in all the games. I'll have to take a closer look at it, but I definitely noticed it against Ole Miss last year.
So is the rule that they have to stop as they line up on the ball? Is that what it is?
So yeah, while the center has his hand on the ball, they're not allowed to ring.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Jack, I'm excited to make it over there to Starkville. We'll have to meet up, and I appreciate your time. Before we go, though, you put your score prediction in the Behind the Enemy Line story, which is over on HawgBeat.com. I'm curious, has that changed at all, or are you still stuck on KJ Jefferson or not KJ Jefferson, Mississippi State wins?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty confident Mississippi State's gonna win this week.
Okay. All right, Jack. Thank you. He's at Jack Byers Rivals on Twitter, and you can visit bulldogbliss.com to see his work. Appreciate your time, man.
All right, thank you. You have a good one.